That said, our primary purpose is to entertain, and where we can entertain responsibly, obviously we try to do that. We try to have a positive impact on the world, but the first thing we need to do is entertain.
There was an in-depth piece, like a behind-the-scenes piece, talking about how they've been in a full meltdown about this girl for a couple of years now.
AMC just dropped a bombshell. They've pulled the live-action Snow White from all their theaters, and nobody saw it coming. This move has totally shaken the industry. Disney had high hopes for this remake, banking on the legendary story and the star-studded cast to carry it. But things took a turn. In a surprise announcement, AMC revealed they just couldn't justify keeping the film on screen anymore. Why? Ticket sales completely tanked. So badly, in fact, that continuing to run, it was costing them money.
Yeah, I have a clip of it.
Oh, okay, great.
Her being a retard.
Okay.
It's no longer 1937, and we absolutely wrote a Snow White.
That laugh.
That is
not going to be saved by
You
the
wrote
prince.
it?
She's not going to be saved by the prince, and she's not going to be dreaming about true love. She's dreaming about becoming the leader she knows she can.
Crowds stayed away, and theaters echoed with silence. Seats that could have been filled by bigger, buzzworthy hits. This downfall had been creeping in for weeks, but no one thought it would crash this hard. Not even Disney, with all its power and marketing muscle, could rescue this troubled remake. Scandals flared up everywhere. The live TV disaster, whispers from the set, tension within the cast. One by one, they sparked a storm of fan outrage that kept getting louder and just wouldn't stop.
It just takes a beloved movie and makes it much more boring and much less realistic. The movie is really, really bad.
Disney hyped it as a bold new spin on a classic tale, starring rising talent Rachel Zegler and Hollywood favorite Gal Gadot. But from the moment it dropped, things started unraveling fast. One misstep after another, until AMC made the shocking move to pull the film early, before it even had a chance to recover. It was a rare public flop. Now, everyone in the industry is scrambling, trying to figure out what went so horribly wrong behind the scenes.
Our rights are on the line, folks.
The
Our
right to buy
reproductive
Cosby
rights.
sweaters?
Come on.
That's the face
Go
of a
vote blue.
serial killer.
And if you disagree with this sentiment, just hit the unfollow button.
Some said fans were just tired of Disney constantly updating classics no one asked to change. Others blamed it on Rachel Zegler's bold public comments, mixed with a clunky PR strategy that came off fake and forced. Either way, the damage was done. The movie bombed at the box office, buried under a flood of bad press, and AMC had no choice but to pull the plug. What started as a potential hit turned into a full-blown studio nightmare. Even Joe Rogan weighed in, breaking down the entire disaster in one of his longest podcast rants yet.
The original cartoon came out in 1937, and very evidently so. There's a big focus on her love story with a guy who literally stalks her.
Say it louder so your other eye can hear you.
So we didn't do that this time.
Rogan pointed out that when AMC pulled the film, it wasn't just about weak ticket sales, it marked a bigger cultural shift. For the first time, audiences saw that Disney's usual weapons, brand power, flashy marketing, and A-list stars weren't enough to save a sinking ship. The chaos around the film had completely drowned out its story. Rogan broke down the unraveling step by step, showing how one bad moment spiraled into a full-blown collapse no one saw coming.
Well, the primary suffering is being sent in by my company to watch a children's movie as a single man, like 2 p.m. on a Thursday. That was the first part that was a little bit weird, but I was basically the only person in the theater.
Rogan didn't hold back, pointing to Rachel Zegler's unfiltered interviews, her surprise comments on The View, and social media posts that clashed hard with Disney's carefully planned messaging. What should have been a routine press moment exploded into viral chaos, live, with a studio audience watching it all unfold. He said even on its own, this meltdown would have hurt. But paired with major changes to a story fans held dear, it wasn't just bad press. It became the spark that burned the whole project down.
You don't particularly see people who, look like me or are me playing roles like that. So it was definitely, when it got announced,
He wasn't a stalker, by the way.
thing that was like trending on Twitter for days because all of the people were angry.
Rogan didn't hold back, pointing to Rachel Zegler's unfiltered interviews, her surprise comments on The View, and social media posts that clashed hard with Disney's carefully planned messaging. What should have been a routine press moment exploded into viral chaos, live, with a studio audience watching it all unfold. He said even on its own, this meltdown would have hurt, but paired with major changes to a story fans held dear, it wasn't just bad press, it became the spark that burned the whole project down.
And so it was like
Those people.
very much this, yes, it was this
The people that we
awakening
need
of-
to educate, the people that we need to love into awareness.
love them in the right direction.
The shift from a loyal remake to a bold reimagining didn't sit well with everyone. Fans began to question whether Disney had pushed the update too far, losing the heart and soul that made the original so loved. And right in the middle of all, that buzz was Rachel Zegler. Her public image didn't help. She made comments that came off as dismissive toward the classic version, or at least that's how a lot of longtime fans took it.
We need to no, you don't need, it's not your job. Your job is to entertain. You are paid to entertain.
To many, her tone seemed to suggest the original was outdated, just a relic from the past, not worth honoring. That hit a nerve. Angry reactions flooded social media. Instead of embracing Zegler as a fresh new face, fans began to see her as the poster child for everything that felt wrong about the remake. To be fair, Disney did try to contain the damage, lining up talk show spots and interviews in hopes of calming the storm, but it was too late.
Very few people wanted to see this. Even the little kids who like Disney movies, even they don't seem to be turning up in droves for the movie because the movie is really, really bad.
The goal was simple: clean up the film's image before release, so opening weekend wouldn't be buried under backlash. But Rachel Zegler's fierce independence clashed with Disney's top-down control. On social media, she stuck to her guns, openly, saying she wouldn't sacrifice her beliefs just to fit a corporate script. In another setting, that defiance might have earned praise. But with this project, where emotions ran high and fans felt deeply attached to the original, her words only added fuel to an already growing fire.
And so I've got some bona fides here on being fair. The movie was absolutely terrible.
The controversy only grew louder. Critics said her comments came off as dismissive, almost mocking fans who cherished the original. Supporters fired back, saying she was just standing up for progress, pushing for diversity and inclusivity. But no matter which side you were on, one thing became clear: the real spotlight wasn't on the movie anymore. It was on the battle between a bold young actress and a global studio, overshadowing the film's story, style, and everything in between.
In every way that the movie differed from the beloved 1937 original, it was worse.
As box office concerns kept building, whispers inside the industry grew louder. Disney's top execs were getting nervous. Bob Iger, freshly back in charge and known for steering through corporate storms, suddenly seemed out of sync with the chaos unfolding. Instead of clear crisis control, fans saw a mess: mixed messages from the cast, vague press responses, and rumors flying about backstage drama. What should have been a well-oiled PR machine now looked more like a ship without a captain.
It basically, this movie was like you took the original Snow White and just put everything through this filter of liberalism. It wasn't through a filter of Japanese anime, it was through a filter of liberalism.
And it became clear, no one at Disney fully grasped how deep the problem ran. The now infamous meltdown on The View was the most public sign of that chaos. The show had been carefully chosen by Disney's PR team, seen as a safe space, where Rachel Zegler could connect with everyday viewers, clear the air, and show respect for the original story despite the modern twist. But what was meant to be a healing moment quickly spiraled. Behind the scenes, tensions simmered. And it was clear not everyone was on the same page.
So from the casting to the class politics, the sexual politics, the regime politics, everything about it was liberal.
Behind the scenes, The View's production team had been handed a clear script from Disney. Highlight these points, avoid those topics, and keep things light. But the moment the cameras rolled, it was clear Rachel Zegler had different plans. She veered into political territory far from the film's message and showed zero interest in following Disney's carefully crafted narrative. The producers, caught between a live broadcast and corporate pressure, scrambled to rein things in. But the damage was done. She had gone completely off script, and the fallout was instant.
Snow White is generally understood to be a very, very white person. And in this case, they decided, nope, no, that doesn't make any sense. So I don't think that's We're allowed to say that, right? I was referring to the movie as sand beige.
The tension was obvious the moment the segment aired. Rachel Zegler made bold remarks, comments critics would later label as inflammatory, implying the original story's themes were outdated. She urged fans to let go of nostalgia and embrace change. But for viewers already skeptical of the remake, her words felt like a slap in the face. Within moments, social media erupted in fury. What came next was the real meltdown. Eyewitnesses described chaos just off camera, producers waving frantically, trying to cut Zegler off or steer the conversation elsewhere. But she held her ground, doubling down instead of backing off. The show spiraled out of control so fast that even The View's seasoned hosts, Whoopi Goldberg, Joy Behar, and Sunny Hostin, were visibly thrown off, scrambling to salvage the moment. Security or staff reportedly had to step in. Zegler was quietly escorted off set, and the broadcast cut sharply to a commercial. Though the full meltdown never aired, enough clips and eyewitness accounts hit the internet to spark a wildfire. Memes, outrage, and endless takes flooded every platform. From that moment on, every conversation about the film circled back to that live disaster. On his podcast, Joe Rogan called it a full-blown PR nightmare, proof that Disney hadn't just lost control of the message, but had done so in front of millions, live. Damage control followed quickly, but the moment had already taken on a life of its own.
It's no really knock on her. If you did the autobiography of Malcolm X, would you cast Tom Hanks? If you remade Moana, would you cast a little Irish guy? No, you wouldn't. So that was off the top.
The fallout became a rallying cry for those who saw the new Snow White as an insult to the original. For Rachel Zegler's critics, her on-air meltdown confirmed their worst fears. She was too headstrong, too independent, for a project that needed careful alignment with corporate strategy. Her defenders, meanwhile, praised her courage, saying she had every right to speak her truth. The chaos pulled in voices from across the media landscape, and in the noise, the rest of the cast faded into the background. Gal Gadot, cast in a major role, was once seen as the film's anchor, bringing A-list credibility and perhaps a calming presence. But the moment Zegler's controversy took center stage, Gadot all but disappeared from the narrative. Joe Rogan pointed out circulating rumors that hinted at behind-the-scenes tension between the two stars. Unconfirmed whispers suggested that Zegler may have privately criticized Gadot's background or personal beliefs. Whether true or not, these rumors added to the perception that the production was unraveling. Instead of a united front, audiences saw division. Gadot played it safe, steering clear of the drama and offering only neutral, enthusiastic comments about the film. Some believed she was simply protecting her brand, choosing not to get pulled into the chaos. But whatever the motive, the promotional campaign lost its spark. What was meant to feel unified and celebratory now seemed fractured, replaced by endless speculation about where each cast member stood in relation to the lead star.
It is not racist to suggest that a character who is described in the original as skin white as snow, that is literally how the character is described in the original, that's a character description in the same way that, as you mentioned, in Moana.
The fan reaction was swift and harsh. Social media lit up with waves of "Not my Snow White" hashtags as frustration boiled over. For many longtime Disney lovers, it felt like a betrayal. The film had drifted too far from the heart of the original, and Rachel Zegler's attitude toward the classic version only added to the backlash. Her comments, seen by some as dismissive or condescending, rubbed fans the wrong way. The impact was immediate at the box office. Despite a massive advertising push, the film couldn't even reach Disney's lowest internal projections. Chains, like AMC, which had bet big on the movie's success by reserving premium screens, were left scrambling. Theaters were half empty, and buzz around the film was overwhelmingly negative. Families, especially parents, started steering their kids towards safer, more traditional options, either turned off by the constant controversy or uncomfortable with the media storm surrounding the film. As the numbers continued to slump, AMC faced a difficult decision. Normally, a major Disney release would hold its slot in theaters for weeks, guaranteed to bring in consistent revenue. But this time was different. Headlines kept dragging the film down, and AMC realized it was bleeding money. The smarter move was to pull the movie early and replace it with films that were performing better. The label of box office poison had officially stuck. Even the promise of stunning visuals and a hefty budget couldn't overcome the fatigue. Audiences were done, not just with the drama, but with a film that had become more about headlines than heart.
This bizarre fixation with race shifting everything, but only in one direction by Disney, obviously is quite strange.
In a move industry insiders described as unprecedented for a major Disney release, AMC made the decision to pull Snow White from its theaters entirely. The timeline varied by region, but AMC's official channels soon confirmed it was happening. When pressed for comment, executives simply stated that the film's performance didn't justify continued screen time. Behind the scenes, local theater managers had already been voicing their frustration, reporting day after day of poor turnout. Many said customers would glance at the film's poster and walk by without hesitation. Others openly criticized the film, saying the media storm following Rachel Zegler's meltdown had made it seem unwatchable. The fallout had moved far beyond the typical bounds of a struggling release. It had become a full-blown cultural moment. AMC found itself with no choice but to act. Critics speculated that this decision might cause tension between AMC and Disney, but others suggested the opposite, that Disney quietly supported the move. If a film's numbers were tanking, there was little reason to prolong the embarrassment. Better to step aside and allow a new release to reclaim attention. Joe Rogan zeroed in on the situation, calling it a watershed moment. In his view, it wasn't just a scheduling shift. It was a sign that the longtime relationship between Disney and major theater chains could crack under pressure. Even big-budget studio films aren't immune when controversy turns away audiences. Rogan emphasized that the now infamous View meltdown had been the tipping point. Until then, there was still hope that casual moviegoers or families not plugged into the drama might give Snow White a chance. But once footage from that chaotic interview started making the rounds, even neutral audiences checked out. Interest turned into rejection. The meltdown pulled back the curtain on a production in disarray. It also became a cautionary tale for studios relying on live media appearances. Normally, publicity tours are tightly scripted, designed to control the message and keep talent aligned with marketing goals. But in the unscripted format of The View, Disney lost that control. Once Rachel Zegler began speaking her mind, producers had little ability to redirect her. They tried, but the damage was done, and the ripple effect was immediate and far-reaching. Disney's response only made things worse. Attempts to suppress the chaos came off as desperate and calculated. Fans who had only been casually aware of the drama were now invested, if only to see how it would all unravel. Bob Iger's leadership also came under fire. He had returned to helm Disney during a turbulent period, inheriting a lineup of legacy remakes already in motion. In the past, Disney could rely on its brand and familiar titles to carry a film, but Snow White proved that formula had limits. No matter how beloved the source material is, if public sentiment turns sour, even Disney can't guarantee success. Critics jumped on the moment, claiming it showed just how complacent Disney had become. The studio had gambled on modernizing. A classic without fully respecting what made it iconic. Worse, the PR machine, usually one of Disney's strongest assets, completely broke down. Instead of delivering a unified, polished message, the public was treated to visible tension, mixed signals, and behind-the-scenes infighting. The situation took another turn when members of Disney's wider circle started to speak out. One story that circulated involved the son of a Disney-affiliated producer posting negative comments about Zegler on social media. He allegedly claimed that her behavior was reckless and had harmed the project. Whether this was an orchestrated move or a spontaneous moment of honesty remains unknown, but it added fuel to the fire. But it highlighted something much deeper, a complete breakdown in coordination. What's usually kept behind closed doors in a major studio's ecosystem suddenly spilled into public view, and the result was chaos. Audiences, critics, and even insiders got the impression that no one involved in the film was on the same page. Rachel Zegler, not surprisingly, took offense to the backlash. From her perspective, she was being unfairly made the scapegoat. Some fans agreed, pointing out that the film already had numerous flaws that might have turned audiences away, even if Zegler had stuck to the script and kept things light. By that point, AMC had seen enough and decided to cut its losses, resulting in the now infamous decision to pull Snow White from theaters completely. The symbolism of that move was impossible to ignore. Disney's live-action remakes typically remain in theaters for weeks, sometimes months, based on box office performance. For a title to vanish entirely within such a short window was unheard of. It sent a clear message across Hollywood. even the most powerful studios can fall hard when controversy drowns out the film itself. The public meltdown had become so overwhelming that many simply stopped viewing Snow White as a film altogether. It had become a spectacle, a cautionary tale. Commentators began to wonder if other theater chains would follow AMC's lead. Some smaller exhibitors had already dropped the movie quietly due to poor attendance, but AMC made it official. The largest theater chain in the country was done. Joe Rogan weighed in again, noting how in a different era, Disney might have quietly absorbed a theatrical flop, relying on home video or global markets to recoup losses. But in today's media environment, where every misstep is dissected in real time, the meltdown became the dominant narrative. Even people who don't follow Hollywood gossip knew about it. Instead of associating Snow White with magic and wonder, audiences linked it to corporate misfires and an uncomfortable live interview. That interview became the turning point. Even critics who may have supported the adaptation lost interest in defending it. The situation also sparked bigger conversations in the industry, especially around the idea of box office poison, a harsh term that some began attaching to Rachel Zegler. To be fair, not everyone agreed. Some industry voices argued it was wrong to pin the film's failure solely on her. They believed the real issue was how far the adaptation strayed from the original, alienating longtime fans. Others called out the film's erratic marketing, which failed to provide a compelling or coherent message. Still, it was impossible to separate the meltdown from the movie's collapse. Promotional materials had placed Zegler front and center, and when she finally had the spotlight, her comments took things in a direction that confused and angered the audience Disney hoped to attract. Rogan speculated that Disney might respond by tightening the rules around press tours for future projects. That could mean stricter contracts limiting what stars can say, or more control over live appearances. But he also issued a warning. If studios overcorrect and force stars to sound robotic or overly rehearsed, it could backfire. Audiences can sense inauthenticity, and they don't like it. Ironically, the meltdown showed that being sincere matters, but in Zegler's case, it was the wrong kind of sincerity. What she said may have been honest, but it wasn't what people wanted to hear. In the days that followed, attention turned to Disney's next move. With the theatrical release essentially dead, many assumed the film would head to streaming far sooner than planned. But even that came with risk. Dumping a high-profile release onto Disney Plus too quickly only reinforces the perception of failure. Yet, what choice did they have? AMC had walked away. Other chains were moving on. Rogan predicted that the meltdown would haunt both Disney and Zegler. In the short term, her future roles would be watched closely. Any signs of more controversial commentary could be a red flag. Meanwhile, Disney would have to rethink how it approaches remakes of iconic stories. The balance between refreshing a classic and honoring it had clearly been lost here. The meltdown also sparked endless commentary online. Late-night comedians and meme creators had a field day. Images of empty theaters, RIP Snow White captions, and clips from the View interview flooded social media. Disney's normally bulletproof image took a hit. In the end, the meltdown captured a deeper cultural frustration. Audiences are open to change, to modern updates, but not when those updates feel corporate, careless, or disrespectful to the original. When that happens, especially combined with a star's viral misstep, the fallout becomes unstoppable. No PR campaign could spin this in a positive light. And when AMC, the biggest player in US theaters, officially cut ties with the film, that was it. That moment, AMC's public announcement became the final blow. It marked the meltdown not just as a bad interview, but as a defining disaster. A moment that would shape how studios handle their talent, their messaging, and their legacy properties moving forward, all in the hopes of avoiding the next meltdown before it starts.